Hello and welcome along to Tippcast. Once again today with myself, Shane Stapleton, joined as ever by Nenagh and sports editor Shane Brophy. We're going to have Denis Kelly on chatting with us soon as well about his year with the Camogie team, about the North final, the mid-final. There's loads to talk about. Shane Brophy, nearly called you Michael Verney there, just out of force of habit. But I suppose there's the All-Ireland hurling final coming this weekend. We're going to talk about that, the latest developments with Hawkeye. We've also we might as well start off with the future of Colin Bonner as the Tipperary manager. There's been lots of discussions on that. And then also the fact that I suppose there's no better place to start than the fact that his backroom team at a minimum is going to be changing now that Tommy Dunn and Paul Curran have stepped down as part of their role. So give us the latest on that.
Yeah, no, it was something I had in the back page of the paper this week. I suppose, as well as I do, Shane, this county in hurling, it's rumour central, but the same rumour seems to be getting louder and louder over the last few days that maybe things were coming to a head. And I assumed maybe that night Colin Bonner appeared on TG Carr that was more or less him saying I'm ready to go. Like you more or less said you were expecting him to come back for next year, but I suppose that first of all that Tommy Dunn and Paul Curran have stepped away is interesting among me, and that I suppose this review is coming to a head. And I just the vibe I got from talking to a couple of county board officials is that there's absolutely no guarantee that he will be in charge next year, whether Colin decides to call it a day or whether the county board decide not to go ahead into a second year. So I did say in my piece that it's 50-50, and I can't be too sure either way which this is going to go. But I suppose losing Tommy and losing Paul isn't a good look.
Yeah, it kind of suggests everything that we kind of thought anyway, that it isn't working. Now, you and I made as many excuses as possible, saying first year in, a lot of players needed to be blooded. You might be looking to try and change the game plan, you've retirements, all this kind of stuff. We made, every effort possible to sort of create as much breathing room as we could, because it's not an easy job coming in after year one. But it wasn't impressive in the league. It looked like they were trying to game plan with moving the ball through the hands, and it didn't work perfectly, but all of a sudden it was abandoned. And it is part of the modern game plan. You can't get away from it. You have to move the ball through the hands, through the lines before delivering it. It seemed to be abandoned. There was a couple of okay-ish performances. The Waterford one, the championship, looked all right. But I suppose as things went on and Waterford unravelled, it starts to look less impressive. Very, very poor against Clare. I know ultimately made a bit of a burst back, but lost by 8 at home. It was a poor defeat and a very poor performance. Then, good performance against Limerick. Maybe Limerick weren't that up for, hard to know, but, pretty good performance there. And then just destroyed at home by Cork. They put up 330 in Thurles. So it's very hard to get away from it. That if you're asking me what are the things that Tipperary got from this year, I really, really struggle. And that's why, this pressure is coming on. That's why the rumour mill is going, because it's just very, very hard to find crumbs of comfort.
Yeah, I think anybody would, when you're looking at Tip this year, and if you thought, okay, there's something definitely happening there, you'd be interested to see what happens next year when he gets a proper pre-season, proper look at these guys. But there was nothing really you could hang your hat on. Like you'd always say, oh, we blooded an awful lot of guys, but there was an awful lot of indifferent performances too. I just thought that the way the thing died a small bit against Cork was particularly demoralising. Look, we all know that Cork are a fabulous team, but they can be flaky, and we made them look like world beaters, and that was concerning now. And I suppose, look, I would have heard pretty early on after that last game that maybe mumblings from a couple of players that maybe that they weren't happy with maybe how preparation had gone. And of course there were things we were hearing the last few weeks that there was a players meeting, or maybe a group of 11 got together, but I've been pretty sure that there was no official players panel meeting. But that doesn't mean maybe a couple of the leading players haven't maybe given their view to both Colin and both county board officials, I suppose, as part of this review of what needs to happen. So I suppose it'll be interesting to see what happens. It is when, I suppose, does Colin come back and say, this is my proposed management team going forward, will that be enough to appease the county board executive who have the final call on giving him a second year? Like, I haven't heard any names as to who would come in to replace Tommy and replace Paul. I assume Johnny Enright would stay, and that maybe he would move up to being the first team coach. Like, he was first team coach up in Meath for a couple of years and well regarded by all accounts. Like, so I think if Colin was to say, I think we need a couple of big hitters to come in as selectors to give him not even him personal support, would just show the players that okay, this is different. This looks a small bit different. Like, so, but like I didn't realize until this week that Tommy's commitment to Colin was only for 1 year. Like that, when he agreed to come on board last year, was just for a 1 year basis. Like, so, I suppose, and I thought good idea, bit of continuity from the previous management in terms of it wouldn't be a starting afresh. But now that Tammy stepping aside and Paul stepping aside, it does feel that the cupboard is a little threadbare.
To me, that's a bit worrying that somebody agrees to come on for 1 year only. The appointment was made in September the 8th last year. You know, it's a good while before you're going to be doing group training at that stage. You have a couple of months. Now, obviously, you'll be getting gym sessions and all that sort of sorted for players that are knocked out of their championship with their club teams pretty early. But you have a nice bit of time there to get together an experienced, exciting management team that plays the modern style of hurling. And, you know, this was always our concern from the start. You know, what proof had we? You know, what CV could we look at in the sense of this is the modern hurling we're going to see. This is the sort of player development we've seen in previous times. So that's why, there's a sort of a wing and a prayer to it. And, like, he's a gentleman anytime I've dealt with him. But, like, we're not talking about that. We're just talking about where are Tipperary going? What are we seeing in black and white that makes you have huge confidence? And when we didn't have that, and then it bore out the way it did, that's why, you know, you have to shine a light on this and say, well, what's going to be different next year? And if it's not going to be different, then are we going to look in another direction?
Yeah, that's it. And, like, I think another instance would be, I suppose, will the next couple of weeks determine what some players decide to do next year? I've already heard of one player that is very likely to maybe be going to Dubai for a year, and he's a teacher, and look, there's a good number of the Tipperary squad are teachers, and look, we all know there's nearly an exodus of teachers to the Middle East every year, and, like, you can go there to teach for a year or two and come back with a deposit on a house, like, so, and, like, you can't, like, it just little things like that can sway a guy. Will he go now, or will he stay here and stick at it for a couple of years? Like, or so. I just think it's a big week. It's if Colin could get a good management team in place, I think the county board will stick with him. If the county board are unconvinced, they may decide to maybe move on. It's. Like you used to say, that Colin is a lovely man. Very approachable this year. You couldn't have asked for any more from them, and he's just. I hope for his sake. I love for his sake it would still work out, but I think it is very 50-50. I'm not 100% convinced what way this is going to go yet. Like, so.
And do you think that contingency plans might be put in place? As in, the Tipperary County Board already looking at other potential managers, assuming that the review doesn't go the way that maybe Colin Bonner would like? Because the club championship, you know, it's going now at the moment. Yeah. So if somebody else is going to take over, they need to be paying attention to the club championship.
Oh, I'm sure that they probably would. Like, I'm not going to speculate on names. I don't think it's fair because, like, there is no vacancy. Like, so, and that wouldn't be fair. So, like, you'd have to say. Ideally, I suppose the next week gets us up to the first round of the group stages, the county championship, where really, I suppose, the top quality club hurling is really going to get going, and lads will be showing their wares. So, I suppose ideally, hopefully, look, you're not going to have a manager. Well, if there is a vacancy, you're not going to have a new manager in place soon, but you can be sure any potential candidates will be out there, out and about watching games. And I just noticed that on the Irish Examiner this morning that the Waterford managerial situation is to be tied up in the next week. So I don't know what that means. Does that mean Cahill doesn't mean Cahill without Beavens. Does it mean or will it mean other selectors, maybe a change in the backroom team? Fast, you'd say it's Limerick. It should be all about Limerick like Kenny this week, but Tip and Waterford in All Ireland week still hanging around.
Yeah, absolutely. Delighted to say we're joined by Denis Kelly now. Denis, if you could tilt down the screen maybe just a slight bit. Great to have you on the show. How are things with you?
No, fear me. No, thanks very much, Shane, for having me.
Great to have you. Okay, so we were just talking there about the situation with Tipperary. Maybe your own thoughts on it. There's a review going on with Colin Bonner, and Paul Curran and Tommy Dunn have stepped away. So what are your own thoughts on it?
Yeah, sure. Look, I suppose it wasn't the most successful season ever in Tipperary, but you have to take into account, I suppose, all the other factors that were involved. You know, we lost a lot of our, Pádraig Maher was a big loss at the start of the year. Brendan was gone. We all know those stories at this stage. I suppose still going into the Limerick match, we were, 2 late goals from Limerick really were sucker punches for us, but we were very competitive in that game. And it was at the, down in Walsh Park as well. I thought that's the game we could have won. So I have sympathy for Colin, especially with Paul and Tommy stepping away. I suppose it leaves a big gap in his management team. And, looking at the year that went by, it's hard to maybe attract coaches or selectors into a team that, when you have got, 0 from 4, it might be hard to get guys on board. So that's, I feel sympathy for Colin. But look, he's a real Tipperary man. You'd love to, you hate to see that anything going against someone like that, because he wears his heart in his sleeve and he's Tipperary through and through.
Shane?
Yeah, no, I'd agree with that. Yeah, look, it's not a nice situation. Like, it was like, where it's not like there's a big pressure on him for him to stay or to go. I think we all wanted him to succeed. As I say, he from 1981, 82 when he was a Tip minor right to now, like, he bleeds blue and gold. Like, and I think we all wanted him to succeed. And look, we have a history between James Woodlock and Liam Cahill, and over the years of maybe managers who struggle in their first years, and Paul Collins the same, come back and they succeed. So hopefully, look, if he's given the go ahead for a second year, look, hopefully they're successful. And again, a lot of guys were blooded last year. Maybe they'll hit the ground running. Maybe they'll have no choice to hit the ground running in the National League next year, but they've got to get some momentum going. Look, it's a big couple of weeks now for a lot of players who want to put their hands up to get into that squad. I suppose the divisional championships are out of the way. The county championship is starting on the weekend after next, and I suppose that's when the real good hurling is going to start.
Yeah, absolutely. We're going to talk about the club championship shortly, but Dennis, just to ask you about the year with the Tipperary Camogie team. Obviously, finished up with a great win over Cork, but not qualifying from the group. Just things didn't quite happen this year, and Bill Mullaney has now stepped away after, I think, 5 seasons. Can you just talk to us about the year in general?
Yeah, look, it was a funny year in a way. We started off very good in the league and strong. I suppose the opposition maybe weren't that strong, but we were moving fairly well. And then I suppose we were hit with maybe between injuries, and we got bad news with girls going travelling and things. And, I counted maybe 14 players down from the previous year. So, while you can allow for a few absentees, when you're hit with that kind of numbers, it's difficult. But we really recovered as the season went on, and the Wexford win followed up by the Cork win were 2 huge results. We were just hoping on other results, I suppose, on the day we would beat Cork, and they didn't go our way. But overall, it finished very positively. The camp itself, we were down to maybe 21 fit players for our final game there, and they really dug it out and got the result we were looking for. But it was just maybe a little bit too little, too late. Maybe looking back to our Clare and Dublin performances, the draw in those two, like when a win is worth 3 points, a draw, it's a bit of a kick in the teeth when maybe you're on top in some of those games, especially the Clare one. We felt like we were better than them on the day, but just couldn't get the scores to get the win. So, those were chances maybe we missed out on. But look, speaking on Bill Mullaney, he's been an exceptional servant to Tip Camogie. He spent 5 years with the seniors, but he also, worked with some of those girls up along since they were underage, and he owes Tipperary Camogie nothing, and I think he should get the debt of gratitude, or the Tip Camogie owe him a big debt of gratitude. And hopefully whoever takes up the job next will be able to carry on. It'd be good now if we could get some continuity, because you're at a stage where we were looking to beat the top three. We done that, but we didn't qualify for a quarter final. So if we could put the two together, the sky could be the limit. There's great underage talent coming through. We had some of them training with us towards the end of the year. So there is real positive vibes in Tipperary Camogie. The under-16s are doing well. The minors were in hard luck in their championship. So there's, and the development squads are really flying at the minute. So it's all positive in Tipperary Camogie. And if we could just keep it going on a positive note, I think there'll be silverware down the line.
Yeah, Shane, you look at it, the league final that Tip got to a few years ago because of COVID, couldn't play it, got to a lot of All-Ireland semi-finals, obviously didn't quite happen there. And then this year, as Denis has just said, a few players are missing, but the future is still very bright.
Oh, yeah, and it's, you'd say, Bill Mullaney has, when Bill took over, I don't think they'd even gotten to a quarter final. Oh, sorry, Brian Boyle took them to a quarter final, but that'd be to a semi-final in about 10 years. They got them to 4 semi-finals in a row, league final that wasn't played, good few league semi-finals, and you just felt every time they were just there, a bit of bad luck came against them, like the Kilkenny bet in a league semi-final last year, a ball slips into the net. This year, I thought I don't know, that Galway match up in Panellasloe, like that game was won. It was a harsh red card and a late harsh free went against them. Like just every time Tip needed seemed to break, it never seemed to go their way. And that was Karen Kennedy being injured this year was huge. Like she's probably arguably the best player in the county, like in your centre back. Like so, I'm saying it for years. We're so close. Like we just need a bit of rub of the green, and be interesting to see who the next appointment will be. And I was wondering, is Denis going to throw his hat into the ring, or it's a plum job, like Denis. I said it a few weeks ago here that I wasn't being naive or stupid and saying maybe like what happened in '99 when Skippy Cleary came in and Colin Bonner and Amy Ryan, that maybe it wouldn't be a big name, could be a one to get them over the line, or Liam Sheedy or somebody with a bit of status as well too, if they decided, God, maybe because this, the way it's like any team, you're the same. Then you're always, if you're looking for a coaching job, you're always angling for the one that has potential to go and win something, if you know what I mean. And I think this is one of those plum jobs that, because they're very close.
Yeah, there's a great camaraderie with the girls there, and there's a great bond with the core group there, and they're really committed to the cause. So we're not sure what the process will be now on appointing a manager, but I'd be a preference that it would be done quickly, because you have a club championship coming up again, and there'll be girls showing their wares, and you'd like to see them in action. So whoever gets the job, it'll be important that the appointment will be made pretty soon, and you get the organisation of S&C and all that behind the scenes, because as the year goes on, it is hard to get a good management team together if you're late in your appointment. So I think number one would be getting that appointment fairly soon and getting it up and running. But look, it is an attractive job. But again, I would say, from where they've worked from, continuity could be an important part of it as well, because if you're starting from scratch or blank canvas, it can take, yourself, maybe the third year is nearly your best year if you're going into a management from scratch. So, if we could get some continuity there, I think it would be helpful.
Yeah, I think we'll move on to the North final now. So Nenagh back on top, 10th North title there, 220 to 218 against Killadangan. Geez, it had to be done the hard way, Shane, didn't it? Barry Heffernan off injured. Looks like a bad knee injury there. There was a straight red card. There was a goal from Paul Flynn maybe in the last quarter, and still Nenagh found a way to dig it out.
Yeah, it was the most probably untypical maybe way for Nenagh to win a match. You always think when Nenagh win these sort of games, big games, that they'll out-hurl the team. But like this was, I'd say it's too early to say it's a new Nenagh, but if this is the Nenagh we're going to see going forward, like they're going to be championship contenders, because like they just refuse to die. Like they're like, half time they were down 7 points and they were completely out hurled in the first half. I think I said it to Lone Maloney. I said you were probably blessed to be only 7 down, or maybe Kildangan would be looking that they should have been further ahead. There was complete domination, like, but fairness to Nenagh, like, Barry Heffernan 2 minutes into the second half, he goes down with I suppose a worrying knee injury. Then they come back and they outscore, they come back level on 49 minutes, concede a soft goal to Paul Flynn, and in the aftermath, there's an incident with Brian Mallochny that sees Mallochny yellow carded, but Conor McCarthy red carded, and then they go 4 points down, and then they come back for more, and Jake Morris gets, I suppose you saw in the video, Shane, that Jake Morris goal. It was ridiculous to see how he scored. I thought maybe he scored it illegally because you didn't know how he got a swing on it, and you just thought from there was only going to be one winner, and I thought it was brilliantly the way it finished up with Hugh Maloney getting the winning point. Like, it's about 2-3 years since Hugh hurled senior, and I suppose Noel back in there as manager, he's decided, look, I'm going to throw me lot in for this year, and just feel something that there's a culture developing there, and I think that's something that I heard from a lot of Nenagh supporters and the committee over the last few days is that they know they have to build something different within the town, and I suppose that within the team, and that bit of a culture, never say die, and like this is a great starting point for them, like they're not going. This won't be the start, the end for them. This is going to be a start.
Yeah, what did you make of it, Denis?
Yeah, it was the game of two halves, really. I suppose at half time, you were thinking the same old story. Kildangan are going to cruise to victory. It didn't look like it was much of a game. There was Kildangan's puck outs, I thought, were exceptional. Barry Hogan in the goals, he was dictating everything from the puck outs. And then on the other end, Mark Tweet they were long and they were high, and they weren't your usual puck out that you'd be seeing with Nenagh. And even deliveries from the back line, there was a lot of aerial stuff that maybe you wouldn't have seen before with Nenagh. They tweaked it then, I think, at half time a little bit, and maybe their hand was forced again with the injury and the sending off. They had to go through the lines a bit more. And, the likes of, I thought Jake Morris showed absolute huge leadership, and his work rate was unbelievable. I haven't seen it from him in club championship previously. So, that kind of leadership is what they're going to need going forward. But it'll be a huge fill-up for them.
Yeah.
They've lost a lot of games like that before, and they've showed great character the other day.
Shane, we got a great bounce from the bench too.
They did, yeah. They made some big calls at half time. Like they brought in a couple of subs. Those two of the younger lads, Ben West and Killian Malone, were the ones called ashore. But like I said, they'll be crucial to the overall plan going forward. But Keane Crowley, I thought when he came on, was really good at the wing. Like as they were moving the ball through the lines, he sort of dropped deep from wing forward into the middle of the field, got on the ball, and they were sending in quality ball inside to Jake. And like Tommy Heffernan had a good second half. He got onto a couple of balls. He sent lovely pass into James Mackey for a goal, and then they just used a better even Hugh Maloney when he ran onto a ball in the corner that ended up he ended up floating the ball into the square that ended up for Jake's the goal. Just seemed to work an awful lot better. Even when Barry went off, you said, geez, they're going to lose out in the half-back line. Mark Carey, come on, he was excellent. Adam Grattan, very, very good. Like, okay, while Paul Flynn scored 1-1, like I think that was the quietest game Paul Flynn probably had in a long time. Like, and if he goes well, generally Kildangan go well. And Conor Hennessy seemed better, more at home around the centre of the field. So just Sean Phelan when he came on, he former Tip minor captain, very, very good as well. So look, it's going to be huge. I suppose there'll be a great feel-good five for Nenagh over the next couple of weeks. I suppose the thing for them now is adjusting to what happens with Barry Heffernan. He's probably going to be out for a period of time. I'm not sure how serious the injury is yet, whether it's short-term or long-term. Short-term, they're now into a preliminary quarter-final if they don't qualify out of the group. So look, it buys him time, maybe 6-7 weeks to get ready if he has a chance. But even if he's out long-term, now they can mentally prepare to, okay, we won't have Barry. How do we realign the half-back line to who's going to be our centre back going forward if he's out long term? So it's I suppose for Nenagh, I suppose they're in a nice shape going into the group stages, the county championship.
Dennis, how big of a blow is this to Kildangan? They were going for a North 3 in a row, and we know now, when you're not winning your division, you don't have that sort of second chance if you don't get out of your county group.
Yeah, well, I suppose they've suffered losses. To be fair to them, they have a couple away on J1s, and Willie Connors is out injured as well. So there's about 3 or 4 regulars there that aren't playing. And when they went to the bench the other night, there wasn't the same quality coming on as they had in previous years. So I'd say that's affecting them. I'd say they won't get too carried away with it. Like if you think back to the year Burris had the run, I think Kildangan beat them as a North semi or North final. And, they kicked on from there. And so it could be the kick up the backside. They need to, they were cruising along nicely there and winning matches.
I'd say Dennis, that they do have a tendency to lose concentration. They did it against Killerowan. They allowed them back into it. They did it against Toom, and it happened again. Like it's becoming a trend now. I suppose it's something they're going to have to deal with, to look into.
Yeah, the second half, bit of a fade in the second half maybe there in the last few games. But as well, I thought they went away a bit from their game, like their puck outs in the first half were dictating everything. Then they started going long. Now, they had an extra man for at least, the last 10 or 15 minutes of that game. I thought they should have stuck to their game plan, but it seemed to change. And when they changed from that, they seemed to lose their rhythm and lose their grasp on the game, and Nenagh took over.
Shane, were there any young players that you saw that really stepped up or showed much? I know Josh Keller, for example, another underage player who would have been with Tip the last few years.
I know, just from Nenagh, it was just a very, very, I suppose, second half, a very, very united team performance. It was a combination of both, really. I suppose, coming back to Dennis, like Jake Morris, I haven't seen him show that level of leadership. And even in the first half, when the game was completely against Nenagh, he got a couple of smashing points in play, won a couple of hard balls. And just in the he just seemed to set the tone, and everybody seemed to follow him after that. I think for his development as a player and as a leader, I think that game will bring him on a ton, not only for Nenagh but for Tipperary.
Yeah. Okay, so we talk about the Liam Devaney Cup final as well. A little mention of Burris Lee there for me. But Portrue holding off Ross Gray after extra time, Shane. 2:24 to 2:23. Geez, not far from going to penalties either.
Yeah. I think Ross Gray were pushing late for another equaliser. They had it looked like they'd almost robbed it in normal time. They got a goal to go ahead in the 65th minute. Sam Conlon and the WordPress had been behind the whole way, but Portrue got a last-ditch free to send it to extra time. But in fairness to Portrue, I think they were ahead on the scoreboard for 80-90% of that game, and it was they fully deserved a victory. Think about the Port. They beat Ballina by a pint. They won their semi-final by 3 against Burgess, 1-score game, and then a pint last weekend. They're the one team you do not want to be in a game with 5 minutes to go, because they just seem to have that collective will and spirit to get over line. They never seem to panic. Look, in fairness to Ross Gray, they only lost by a point. I think these 3 games they've had in the North will bring them on a ton. They're playing. England is getting them to play a new style of hurling, more through the lines, using the ball, and you can see from game to game they're getting more comfortable with it. And I suppose maybe as the autumn goes on, they'd be hoping maybe to get Alan Tynan back, and if he's back, it'd be some addition if they're still in the knockout stages of the county championship. So look, I think both teams are nicely set up for a crack at the Oreen in the county championship.
Yeah, would you agree, Dennis? Just even the players who did the scoring here. John Sheedy scored 7 points, 2 of those from play. AJ Willis with 2-1, Ruan Mulrooney with 6 points, and Kevin O'Halloran with 4. Do you see them having either of these teams having a big season when it comes to the Oreen?
But they have to have a huge say in it. Now you have other teams down south direction as well. That'll, Swans had a good win in the south final. Then you have Killinall. You never know what Killinall will do, but you'd expect a kick from them at some stage. So that's really competitive there. Ross Gray are I know Liam England fairly well, and they had a good run with Mine Temple too. He brought them to winning a county intermediate final. So he's good experience there, and so he'll leave no stone unturned to get them to success. And then on the other side, Port, they're a team no one wants to face, because you're going to get a real tough battle in any of those games. So they're going to be two real contenders there at that level.
Yeah, you were at the mid-final as well, weren't you, Dennis? JK Brackens winning a first ever mid-title beating Drum, coming from well behind down the stretch to win 19 points to 115, and Andrew Ormond with a late winner. Can you describe the scenes there when JK Brackens went ahead and the full-time whistle went?
Sure, Dennis taught them all the news, all the teaching down there in Columkills. Sure, they're all your prodigies, aren't they?
Well, there's a few of them anyway. Yeah, look, it was good. It was great to see the lads getting over the line. The first one is always the hardest one, I suppose, to get. It was their first appearance in the final as well. And look, midway through that second half there, it didn't look good from they went 6 points down. Now, there was a bit of a furore about an early second half goal that wasn't allowed for a finish. And that kind of took maybe 5-6 minutes to sort out. And when it was sorted, then you had extra time at the other end, so they used that to their advantage. But look, they really showed true grit and determination. They played with a sweeper. Both teams had a sweeper. Paddy Cadell was sweeping for Brackens, and he really did a good job. And they stuck to the game plan while there was some ball going long, and Drum were mopping them up. They didn't deviate from their game plan. I suppose Eamon Corcoran there is their manager, and he had them really well brought out along with his management team. So look, there was huge excitement at the end. It just showed you why we need to hold on to our divisional finals, because the outpouring of emotion at the end there was unbelievable. They just the people of Templemore really were in a serious delirium afterwards, and they just it was great to see. While you'd feel sorry for Drummond Inch, I suppose they have the few under their belt, and they'll come stronger again during the championship.
Yeah, like, I mean, even if Brackens weren't going into this as massive favourites, with Drum winning the league and that, like, they have been pushing close in the last couple of years in terms of the county championship, Shane. I've been very impressed with some of their performances. The one against Lockmore really stood out. But at the same time, Drum had a free from inside their own half from Seamus Callan and hit the post. It was cleared. They had 16 wides. But first off, Brackens, it's not like it hasn't been coming that they'd make some sort of progress and make a fist of it in the mid.
No, I should like that they would have been winning mid minor titles, mid under 21 titles, contending with Sarsfields, contending with Drums, contending with Lockmore. So like you're every year those group of players are playing with the best of their age category up along. So like they were always coming. Look, you couldn't have a better leader of men over a group than Eamon Corcoran. Like he was, I think, in that era he was my favourite Tipperary player of that English group. As he was just a small guy. Well, I wouldn't say small, but he gave away inches to a lot of guys at wing back. But God, he played with his heart and his spirit. He played with pride and heart and courage and no little quality. Like so, they're and they were probably due a bit of a break too. The last few years they've been coming up short. Lost narrowly to Killidangan last year. Lost to Lockmore. You take they were on the cusp of something, and now they've taken another step. Like they're in the knockout stages of the county championship. It's going to be a busy year for them because like they're a dual club. Like so, but like they're in a great position going into the group stage of the county because they have a knockout. They're in a group with Killidangan, Lockmore, and Anacarty, and to know that you already have a knockout game booked it just takes the pressure off a small bit. Not that they won't be going out to try to go in the front door and get straight to a quarter final. Like so. Look, we know the quality they have. Like the play to a structure with Paddy Cadell at that centre back with Tom Murphy at full back is a great leader. Up front, Lyndon Fairbrother will be very, very good. And look, I've been a big fan of Andrew Ormond since I seen him hurl for Our Ladies. I just think this guy, I think he should be in with Tip. He might be slight for the inter-county game, but he has great footwork. He's very elusive. The last 2 or 3 years of Tipperary, our forwards all seem to be the same type, and I just think he offers something different that wouldn't do any harm in there at the moment.
Yeah, was there anyone any players in particular that caught your eye on either side, Dennis?
Well, I thought Fintan Purcell had a very good first half for Drum. He got maybe 2 or 3 points from wing back, and he looked very promising. Stevie Nolan as well. Now they had a free man back there, but they were working it well with the wind. As Shane has said, Andrew Ormond is a special talent. I suppose he had a great run with the county 20s, but then wasn't taken back in. And like, he mightn't shoot the lights out every day, but he is very clinical when he's on form. And the other day, like the last score he got, you've probably seen it online. It was massive over the shoulder on the sideline. It was really a great score to win the game. But there's others as well. Lyndon Fairbrother probably got most of his scores off frees, but again, vital, the free taking. And Shamey's one drop short. He was a long ways out and off the post and everything else. But there was loads of talent on show. But I suppose they'll be looking to drive it on now for the championship. And even though Brackens have won their mid, they're in a tricky group, and they'll want to get a win or two in that group as well to make sure of their senior status.
Yeah, is there any team in particular at this juncture? I know it's very early days, Dennis, but who are you looking at in terms of the runners and riders for the county championship? Like, we know that SARS are going to be down Paddy Maher from here on in. We know that Lockmore are down Ed Connolly and John McGrath. So it kind of feels like it's a bit wide open.
Yeah, it definitely throws it wide open. I suppose we were talking at half time of the North final. Killadangan were raging hot favourites, and need to turn that around. But still, Killadangan will be there or thereabouts. You would have to reckon them in. Sarsfields, we don't really know what they're going to bring without Paddy, but I'm sure they'll be very competitive. It's hard to know after that. Borrisley, I suppose, will hope to have a say in it, but they have to prove themselves yet under their new management. So we'll have to wait and see there. But there's loads of other teams as well. It is a hard one to pick this year. Lockmore, you'd never write them off either. I know they're down a lot of players, but to be at your peril that you write them off, because they're very hard to beat no matter what 15 they put out in the field.
Yeah. Shane, has the last few weeks kind of shaped how you're looking at the county championship?
Yeah, not really, because I think every club has been down a couple of players because of J1s. I think we'll get a better feel for it as guys start to come back and we see maybe teams at their strongest. I just think we've hit on the county championship structure that works now. I love this idea where you have your divisional championships feed in, but your 4 divisional winners, you sort of know they have a wild card in their pocket. Nenagh, Clonoulty, and JK Brackens, they have knockout berth secured. So that means they're off. Their pressure's off then to a certain. They're not under as great a pressure maybe in the group stages, whereas Borrisley, SARS, and Drum, they're all in the one group. At least one, if not two of them, is going to be eliminated. And I think Tipperary are going to give their fill of it too. I don't think we didn't see the true Tipperary in that North semi-final. And now that Cormac McGrath will be able to give his full focus to Tipperary, I think they could surprise Drum an inch in their first game. Like they'll be coming in under the radar. Drum will be a little maybe sore after losing that mid-final, so maybe they'll be vulnerable. But that Borrisley Sarsfields game on Saturday or Sunday week, I think that'll be worth watching out. Well, I thought the fixtures would be out at this stage, but I'd say I wouldn't be surprised if that gets the Semple Stadium treatment. That will that's going to be a serious game.
Yeah, Dennis, is there any other group that's whetting the appetite, or any other potential fixture that's getting you going?
I haven't really reviewed them yet. Your focus is on the North Championship and the Mid and all the divisions there. So there is some really strong groups there, and they're very even as well. But look, it's going to be. I think that Sarsfield's Borrisley game is in Semple Stadium, along with another fixture as well. So look, it'll be great viewing, and as I say, it'll be dog eat dog on every given day. But it's very hard to call this year. I think there will be a sting in Killadangan, and they'll kick on from this. They won't like getting beaten. They're not used to it over the past few years, and they might be hard beaten down the line as well.
Yeah, is there anything else, Shane, you want to touch on before we talk about the
All-Ireland? I still think Killadangan are in a good spot. I think Willie Connors is not far away. I think I'd expect to see Willie Connors play in some of the group, maybe at some part in the group stage at least. And I think Billy Seymour is due home soon. I'm not sure about Declan McGrath or Dara Flannery. So look, they'll get stronger. They have had very little input from Sean Tracy this year. Now that Clare are out, Sean will be back full time doing the coaching, and they're only going to benefit from that too. I just looked at the betting odds, and I was looking through the list of names, and so you could say, okay, they have a chance, but there's a vulnerability there too. I just think Gee, I think if any number of teams could win it. It's all about getting on a bit of momentum. And I wouldn't rule out the likes of a Brackens or even a Mike Harkey if they just get on a bit of a run. Like it's just as I say, every team has their strengths, but every team has a vulnerability too. So I think it's a lot of the group games are very, very even. Like there's no maybe group of death. There's no. I was looking through the groups and I couldn't call any of them for teams that would qualify. Like it's very well set up.
Okay, let's talk about the All-Ireland hurling final this weekend. Kilkenny against Limerick. Dennis, if only both of them could lose.
Yeah, hard to know who to shout for, but it's it's going to be a great final. Looking through some of the stats there last night, it's really built up for a huge game. Cody has some. He's going into I think it's 80 All Ireland or something like that, having won 11 and drawn a couple as well. So it's really going to go down to the wire. You'd probably have to favour Limerick slightly with the lads coming back into the fold, but it is very hard to call. They're slight favourites, I think, at the bookies as well. But it is a hard one to call.
Yeah, I see this one going all the way down to the wire. There's lots of rumours locally that Cian Lynch mightn't be right for this game. Obviously, he's been carrying an injury all year. And Limerick have only beaten Kilkenny once since 1973, Shane. So Kilkenny obviously would never really fear playing against the treaty.
Yeah, like you'd feel like, in fairness to Limerick, you wouldn't think they'll get their focus wrong, but like, will they? How much will they be focusing on winning a game, and how much will be focused on beating Kilkenny? If they get focused on beating Kilkenny, I think they could struggle Limerick. I say now you always hear the 2019 game being brought up, and that was the day Kilkenny really brought the game to them in the first half. I think Kilkenny are going to bring in a lot of that again. Like I think it's. I think in the last 15, 20 minutes, this is going to go to the wire, because you'd say, okay, Limerick have the starting 15, they have the bench, but like Kilkenny have an awful lot of guys. The Kilkenny will have Walter Walsh to bring off the bench. You wouldn't be surprised if Richie Hogan features, that they were saving him for a game like this off the bench, 15, 20 minutes to go. Like maybe a lot like what Limerick will do. I would assume Cian Lynch and Peter Casey are not going to start. They probably just miss too much hurling. Maybe they might take a gamble on starting on one of them, maybe, and you still have one good guy off the bench. It's I suppose you're odd saying matchups, but I think more like we all know where Limerick are going. Limerick are going to set themselves out. They're not going to probably focus on too many. Maybe they'll focus on TJ Reid, maybe to a certain extent, but I don't think. Maybe apart from who maybe Mikey Butler picks up, I'm not sure what Kilkenny going to do. I think Hugh Lawler is probably set for Gillane, just in terms of, I think just the importance of Aaron Gillane. I think maybe Butler will go after Flanagan, because Flanagan tends to drift out the field a small bit. So the interest for me is what Limerick would do with Richie Reid. Like I thought Richie Reid had a serious impact in that Clare game. He was allowed more or less a free rein at centre back to sort of deliver the ball in. I think Limerick will definitely try and negate his influence on the game, whether it's a Cathal O'Neill or maybe they might bring out Graham Mulcahy, sort of flood that area, make sure Richie Reid is tied up at all times.
Yeah, I'd imagine the way that they'll try and eliminate the threat of Richie Reid is by not bombing long ball all day like Clare crazily did in that All-Ireland semi-final, and shooting from 100 yards constantly. So I'd say they'll try and work the ball between the lines and pull him around the place and just basically make him redundant back there. Yeah. What would you think, Dennis?
Yeah, you definitely have to see that. If you're looking at where Limerick are delivering the ball from, generally it's they're delivering it outside the sweeper, and sure Gillane will eat that up all day, or Flanagan the same way. You're looking at it there. It is like looking at that team, and I just read something last night. There's 7 out of the Kilkenny team that were on that team that were beaten by Westmeath in 2016. So it does really show how Cody is able to mold lads into his way of thinking, and that that was a big defeat for them back in the. You'd say normal teams coming through, you get 3, 4. To get 7 out of that team, and Paddy Deegan there was the captain that time, and to make them into senior hurlers, it's a huge tribute to Cody. He's really been, if he wins this All Ireland with Kilkenny, it'll be probably his greatest his greatest ever, because he's, you know, he hasn't had the same talent. But if you look at Kilkenny, they're working off a Ballyhale axis, really. You know, you have TJ Mullen, you have Reid at centre back. They're linking it up lovely there, and then you have the rest around them. You know, feeding off them. You have Owen Cody as well. Like, so they're really important to Kilkenny. You know, on the other side, like Limerick, I think they have a slight weakness at full back, and I think that Cody might go after that. Casey, he's a fine hurler, but he's not the same. He's not the same full back as Dan Morrissey for me. Dan Morrissey isn't that fancy, but he does hold that full back better. And you know, it could be something. If Cian Lynch was fit, I could see a move for maybe our centre forward back to wing back. His name is Hayes. You know, and even though he played well the last day, I think that would make them a lot more solid. And Peter Casey, if he's fit enough, he'll definitely be thereabouts. Graham Mulcahy could lose out, but you know, it is very hard to see where the difference is going to come from. Like Kilkenny hit Clare, you know, really hard at the start of the last day, and they weren't able to live with it. You know, Limerick are a different animal, I presume, and it'll be, you know, I hope it's a tight one, because the last two All-Irelands that Limerick have won have been one-sided affairs. 11 points win, and was it 13 or 14 points the last time? So you know, they've been really one-sided, and for the neutral especially, it's great when you have a match that's good and tight like that, you know. So hopefully they're looking to go into the 3 in a row club, which is a big one. You know, you have Tip, Cork and Kilkenny, so it'll be the first time to have 3 in a row for Limerick. So that's a bit of an incentive as well. Probably not for the players, but for the fans, you know, to get into that club.
Yeah, and even actually 3 finals in a row haven't been tight, because Tipperary hammered Kilkenny in 2019. No harm reminding any Kilkenny viewers of that, if anyone happens to be watching. But Shane, actually, if you go back to the Tip Kilkenny meeting in the league, it was probably one of the worst games I've seen in an awful long time. Tipperary won by a point. And considering the divergent paths of the two teams since then, Kilkenny have done very well to recover. And I know it was a league game, but to go from that dross to get into an All-Ireland final, that's been some change around.
Oh yeah, sure. I remember remarking to myself coming out of Simple Stadium, as the worst Kilkenny team I've ever seen. You think, how is Cody going to get this team going? And even coming into the championship, I was thinking, is this the year Kilkenny miss out and they might qualify out of Leinster? And sure they come through and they're Leinster champions and they're 70 minutes away from an All-Ireland. Just Cody, he finds the way the whole time. Even the way he revives players' careers. Like, you would have thought, look, Martin Keown, a player at Case and Pint there this year, you thought this guy, had he missed the boat, like, he's been there a couple of years, 4 or 5 years, but you thought was he ever going to make it? He's turned him into an effective full forward this year. He's after revitalising Walter Walsh for the second or third time. There must be a great relationship with those two, but he keeps getting, every time you think maybe Walter would pack it in and maybe why might still coming, he gets him coming back. He's still getting Billy Ryan to produce, even though I think Billy Ryan is just one of those players with so much potential. He rarely gives it, but he seems to be, he's able to keep you motivated. Sometimes a lot of these types of Billy Ryan players would start doubting their own ability and feeling sorry for themselves. But God, even when Billy doesn't start, he's able to bring him on and get him to be effective as well. And but like, I think the big thing for me, I think that the big help for Kilkenny this year is the real Adrian Mullen has come back. Like, the Adrian Mullen that we heard of as a young lad. And I suppose, look, in fairness to 2019, he was sick, I think, in that final. Didn't show his true best, and maybe the last few years hasn't been at his best, but definitely this year. Jesus, he's been. I couldn't understand maybe why they played him in midfield. But I thought against Clare when they played him wing forward, I think that's his position where he can move up and down that wing and get into attacking positions as well. But like, he's not afraid to go back and be in his own full back line when he needs to. But I definitely think Mullen's development this year has been huge for Kilkenny.
Yeah, and I suppose one thing is we don't know if Hawkeye is going to be used in the final. The GA released a bit of a statement today saying they can confirm that a full report into the issues relating to problems with the score detection technology in use in Croke Park last weekend has been received from Hawkeye. A combination of unrelated issues, including minor hardware failures, led to an erroneous finding for a score towards the end of the first half of the football semi-final, which was promptly queried by match officials who subsequently took the decision to award the score. Full end-to-end testing of the system will take place this week, after which a final decision will be made as to the deployment of the system for Sunday's GAA hurling final. Hawkeye have also confirmed that there were no historical issues with the system and that the problems experienced relate to last Saturday only, and specifically to the Hill 16 end goal for that specific moment in time. The GAA is to undertake a full review of its own protocols relating to when and how the system should be stood down if similar challenges are to arise in the future. Then also, I noticed a piece with Cara O'Kane in the Irish News. He was talking to Fergal McGill, who's the GAA Director of Player Games and Administration, and he said that this is also relating to that game between Galway and Derry. The Conor Glass one, I can confirm Hawkeye got that right. There were no issues with Hawkeye in that one. The umpires called for Hawkeye. Video would tend to suggest it was over the bar, but Hawkeye is telling us it wasn't, and I'm certain that Hawkeye is accurate. I mean, look, I watched the video footage, and if Hawkeye can get it wrong once and that looked clearly over the bar, then I can't be entirely sure that I agree with that. And like, there's fair enough though with the Hawkeye. If any part of it, the ball touches the post at all, it's deemed a wide, even though, you know, naturally a lot of balls go in off the post. But Shane, are you buying that? I have to say I'm not entirely buying that.
Yeah, there's definitely a confidence issue now with Hawkeye. I think last week's, I suppose, was it 10 years? Was it 9 years ago that minor semi-final was Limerick and Galway where they first arose, and you see things from time to time. I suppose Tipperary had it in 2019 with the two balls Brian Hogan caught over the crossbar. I know from speaking to Brian a good few times about it, he's adamant that his hand was nowhere near behind the crossbar. Like, so, like, this is a problem now, because if you don't have confidence in the system, why would you have it? And like, that I couldn't get over. Like, that was an easy one. In fairness to the umpire, he got it right. He did his job. He called it as a pint. But there was actually one in the Cavan Westmeath game, an early one, and it was well wide. It from Hawkeye's position looked well wide, but generally, if it's well wide, the umpire is fairly. It was as if the system. It definitely as if something was out of kilter on the Hill 16 end on the Saturday, because it made sense. Why is an umpire calling for Hawkeye when it was that far wide? And like he made me think, why was he actually calling for it in the first place? And it makes me think actually maybe it was tighter than he thought, but the system made it look worse. Like, it was that. Maybe give Hawkeye system report the benefit of the doubt that it was out of kilter, but thankfully it didn't actually cost ending up a game. And I think fair play to the referee at half time, he gave the point, but then I was thinking afterwards, okay, the right was wrong, but was that actually right in what he did, in the spirit of it? Had he the power to do what he did after the score was chalked off? Like, so yeah, they have. I think that if the GA are going to go down the road of keeping Hawkeye, I think they have to have some sort of a confidence building course to restore confidence, not among the players, the management, supporters, that this is a system worth persisting with.
Yeah, well, Galway told the referee at half time that they weren't going to come back out for the second half until the decision was overturned. And imagine if Derry had to decide, well, we want the Conor Glass one as well. I mean, back in 2013, when it happened with Barry Nash's point, was ruled wide, even though it showed up. It showed the graphic up on screen, it showed it inside, and they said it was calibrated for football. You can totally accept that one with confidence and move forward. Dennis, to me now, what's been said there so far, I haven't heard anything that would restore my confidence in Hawkeye after what we saw at the weekend. The Shane Walsh one was like, it was well inside. And now we're supposed to expect...
It was an easy one for the umpire. Like, it's coming in from distance. He's right under the boy. He can see. Like, I'd love to know what the umpire thought after. What the fuck? Like, am I seeing things that I didn't call that right? Like, Jesus, I say he must have wondered what the hell was going on.
Yeah, what are your thoughts on it, Dennis?
Yeah, sure. It is very hard to have confidence in it now, and you're facing into the biggest games of the year, and you have a system that really isn't really filling anyone with great confidence. So are they going to stand it down for the rest of the year? I'm not sure. I think there's an 8,000. It costs 8,000 every time they turn it on, so it's a big deal. But if it's a system like that, and the GA paid so much for it. It would want to be working correctly. So there definitely would want to be either you have your umpires on their toes and have them ready for action, or we need to know what's going to happen, because you don't want a scenario where a team gets a score in the final and it's chalked off by Hawkeye, and the next thing there's a big furore again. We need confidence in the system. Definitely.
I think you just don't know, like this. I'm not convinced that, like, Galway benefited this time, but the week before, Galway hurlers had one chalked off shooting into that end. Like, how long has this issue, if there is an issue with the Hill 16 end, how long has that been out of kilter this summer? Like, how many other decisions has it gotten wrong? Because I'm not sure. Like, when you just say when you have concerts in there, does everything have to get reset in there? Like, and like, it's I don't know. It's how
you're doing well to resist bringing up the bubble score. You know that.
Oh yeah. I'm not getting involved in that. I heard all that all week, and I said, Jesus, no, we're not going back over that again. Like, so.
Okay, well, look, I think that's it for the show this week. Delighted to be joined by Denis Kelly and Shane Brophy as ever. Thanks very much, folks. Don't forget to pick up a copy of the Nenagh Guardian.
Thanks, Les.
Here's that.